Captain Junho Kim walked slowly across the dusty ground of the mining colony. His boots made soft sounds on the metal walkway as he headed toward the mess hall for dinner. The twin suns of Kepler 442b were setting behind the mountains, and the sky was turning dark purple. He had been working for 12 hours straight in the communication center, and his stomach was making hungry noises. The mining colony was a small place with only 300 humans living there. Everyone knew everyone else, and life was simple but hard. The company that owned the colony had strict rules about who could live there and who could not. Only humans were allowed to stay. All other species had to go somewhere else, even if they were friendly or needed help. As Junho walked past the big waste containers behind the mess hall, he heard a small sound like someone crying. He stopped and listened. The sound came again, very quiet and sad. He walked toward the containers and looked behind them. There was a little girl sitting on the ground. She was very small, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her hair was messy, and her face was thin from not eating enough food. She had pale skin and big dark eyes that looked scared. When she saw him, the girl was not human. She was from a species called the Valen. The Valen people looked similar to humans, but they were taller and had pale skin, and their eyes were bigger. They were known to be peaceful and gentle people who did not like to fight wars. The little girl tried to hide when she saw Junho, but she was too weak to run away. She spoke in her own language, which sounded like music, but Junho could not understand the words. His translator device caught some of the words, and he realized she was asking for food. Junho felt sad when he saw how hungry the little girl was. He knew that the colony rules said no aliens were allowed, but he also knew that leaving a hungry child alone was wrong. He looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then he spoke to her in a gentle voice. "Do not be afraid," he said. "I want to help you." "Are you hungry?" The little girl nodded her head. She understood some human words, but could not speak them very well. She pointed to her mouth and made eating motions with her hands. Her eyes were full of hope and fear at the same time. "Wait here," Junho told her. "I will bring you something to eat." He walked quickly into the mess hall. The dinner today was vegetable soup with bread and fruit. Most of the other workers were already eating and talking loudly about their day. No one paid attention to Junho as he got an extra bowl of soup and put some bread in his pocket. He walked back outside to where the little girl was waiting. She was still sitting behind the containers, looking around nervously. When she saw the bowl of soup, her eyes became very wide and bright. She reached out with shaking hands to take the bowl. "Thank you," she whispered in broken human language. "Thank you, kind human." She began to eat the soup very fast, like she had not eaten in many days. Junho watched her eat and felt happy that he could help her. The soup was hot and good, and he could see that it made her feel better. When she finished eating, she looked up at him with a big smile. "What is your name?" Junho asked her. "My name is Kira," she said slowly. "I am from far away. My mama and me, we came here asking for help, but the guard said no aliens allowed. They made us leave. Where is your mama?" Now Junho asked. "She is hiding in the rocks outside the colony." Kira said, "She is very smart and can hide very well. She told me to find food but not to let the guards see me. She said humans are dangerous, but you are not dangerous. You are." Ken Junho felt bad when he heard this. He knew that the colony guards were told to keep all aliens away, but he had never thought about what happened to the families who were turned away. Many of them had nowhere else to go and no way to get food or water. "Why did you and your mama come here?" he asked. "Our home planet was attacked by bad people." Kira said. Her voice became very sad. "We had to run away. Mama said we could find safety here, but the guards said, no, we have been hiding in the rocks for many days. I was so hungry." Junho felt angry at the guards and the colony rules, but he also felt scared. If anyone found out he was helping an alien child, he could get in big trouble. The company was very strict about the no aliens rule, and they would punish anyone who broke it. "Here, take this bread too," he said, giving her the bread from his pocket. "You can save it for later." Kira took the bread and hid it in her torn clothes. She stood up and bowed to Junho like her people did when they wanted to show respect. "Thank you for saving me," she said. "I will tell Mama about the kind human who gave me food. She will be very happy to know that not all humans are mean." "Wait," Junho said. "Where are you going now?" "I must go back to Mama before it gets too dark." Kira said. "She worries when I'm gone too long, but I will remember you always. You saved my life today before Junho could ask her anything else. Kira ran away into the shadows between the buildings. She moved very fast and quiet like she knew how. To hide from people, she disappeared so quickly that Junho wondered if he had imagined the whole thing, but the empty soup bowl in his hands proved that it was real. He had just helped a hungry alien child and broken the colony rules. He felt good about helping her, but also worried about what might happen if anyone found out. As he walked back to his quarters, Junho thought about Kira and her mother living in the rocks outside the colony. He wondered how many other refugee families were out there hiding and hungry. He had always thought the no aliens rule was unfair, but now he saw how cruel it really was. That night as he lay in his bed, Junho could not stop thinking about the little girl. He hoped she had made it back to her mother safely. He hoped they would find a way to survive in the wilderness. He did not know that his simple act of kindness had started something much bigger than he could imagine. He did not know that Kira's mother was not just any ordinary Valen refugee. She was someone very special and very dangerous, someone who had been watching the colony for weeks and planning something that would change everything. He did not know that the bowl of soup he had given to a hungry child would soon lead to events that would shake the entire colony to its core. But for now he was just a man who had done a good thing, and he slept peacefully knowing that he had helped save a life. The next morning, Junho woke up and went to work as usual. He did not see any sign of Kira or her mother, and he began to wonder if they had moved on to somewhere else. He hoped they had found safety, but he also felt a little sad that he might never see the brave little girl again. Little did he know that very soon he would see her again, and he would meet her mother too. And when that happened, his quiet life in the mining colony would never be the same again. 3 days passed since Junho had given soup to the little alien girl named Kira. He went to work every day in the communications center and tried to forget about what had happened. But sometimes he would look behind the waste containers hoping to see her again. She never came back, and he wondered if she and her mother had found somewhere safe to goon. The fourth morning, Junho was checking the radio signals from other colonies when Security Chief Namsu Park burst through the door. Namsu was a big man with a red face who always looked angry about something. Today he looked more than angry. He looked scared. Kim, we have a big problem, Namsu said. His voice was shaking. We found 3 security officers dead in their quarters this morning. Junho stopped what he was doing and looked at Namsu. Dead? How did they die? Was there an accident? No accident. Namsu said they were murdered. All 3 of them had their necks broken, but here is the strange thing: there are no signs of fighting. No weapons were used. No one heard anything. The doors were locked from the inside. There is no way anyone could have gotten in or out. Junho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Who were the dead officers? Officers Hansal Lee, Mingyu Park, and Dongwoo Kim. Namsu said they were all part of the border security team, the ones who check people coming to the colony and decide who can stay and who has to leave the border security team. Junho knew these were the officers who turned away alien refugees every day. They were the ones who had probably turned away Kira and her mother. They were known for being very harsh and never showing mercy to anyone who was not human. Did you find any clues about who did this? Junho asked. Nothing. Namsu said it is like a ghost came and killed them, then disappeared. The medical team says their necks were broken with perfect skill. Whoever did this knew exactly how to kill quickly and quietly. That day the whole colony was in panic. Administrator Du-Hyun Lee called a meeting of all the workers. He was a thin, nervous man who always worried about company profits more than people. He stood in front of everyone, looking very scared. We are under attack, he announced. Someone or something is killing our security officers. We do not know who or what is doing this, but we must protect ourselves. Starting tonight, no one is allowed to leave their quarters after dark. All security patrols will be doubled. Everyone must stay inside and keep their doors locked. The workers began talking among themselves. Some said it might be alien terrorists. Others thought it could be pirates who had landed on the planet A. Few brave ones suggested that maybe someone was getting revenge for all the refugee families that had been turned away. That night, Junho lay in his bed listening to the sounds outside. His quarters were on the 2nd floor of the workers' building, and he could hear the security patrols walking around with their heavy boots. Everything seemed normal, but he could not shake the feeling that something was watching him. The next morning brought more bad news. 2 more security officers were found dead in exactly the same way. Their necks were broken and there were no signs of how the killer had gotten into their rooms. The workers were now openly scared, and some were talking about leaving the colony. Junho began to notice strange things happening around the colony. Small amounts of food were disappearing from the mess hall storage room. Sometimes he would see shadows moving in ways that did not look right. Other workers reported hearing soft footsteps at night when everyone was supposed to be inside. On the 6th day after the first murders, Junho was walking to his quarters when he saw something that made him stop. A small piece of wood was sitting on the ground outside his door. He picked it up and looked at it closely. It was a carving of a human figure giving food to a smaller figure. The carving was rough, like it had been made by a child, but it was clearly meant to show him giving soup to Kira. His hands shook as he realized what this meant. Kira was still here, she was still alive, and she was watching him. But if Kira was here, then her mother was probably here too. And if her mother was here, then maybe she was the one who was killing the security officers. That night Junho could not sleep. He kept thinking about the little girl and her mother living somewhere in the colony, hiding from the guards. He thought about how desperate they must be and how angry they must feel about being turned away when they needed help around. Midnight, he heard a very soft sound outside his door, like someone whispering. He got up quietly and listened. The sound came again, and this time he could make out words. "Thank you for feeding my daughter." The voice was soft and musical like Kira's, but it was a woman's voice. It had to be her mother. Junho's heart started beating very fast. He walked slowly to the door and listened. "You showed kindness when others showed cruelty," the voice continued. "You are protected." Junho opened the door as quietly as he could and looked outside. The hallway was empty, but on the ground was a small piece of paper. He picked it up and read it by the light from his room. The note said, "You showed kindness when others showed cruelty. You are protected." In simple human writing. Junho looked up and down the hallway but saw no one. Whoever had left the note was gone, like they had never been there. He went back inside and closed the door. His mind was racing with questions. Who was Kira's mother? How was she getting into the colony without being seen? And most importantly, was she really the one killing the security officers? The next morning brought the worst news yet. Administrator Lee was found dead in his private office. His neck was broken like the others, but this time there was a message written on the wall in red paint. "For the children you turned away." When the workers heard about the message, they began to understand what was happening. Someone was getting revenge for all the alien families that had been denied help. The security officers and the administrator were being punished for their cruelty. Namsu called for military help from the nearest space station. He sent urgent messages saying that the colony was under attack by unknown forces. But Junho was beginning to think that this was not an attack by many people. This was the work of one person, one very skilled and very angry person who could move like a shadow and kill without making a sound. As he thought about everything that had happened, Junho realized that his simple act of giving soup to a hungry child had started something much bigger than he could have imagined. Kira's mother was not just any refugee. She was someone with special skills, someone who could slip past guards and lock doors, someone who could kill trained security officers without leaving a trace, and she was protecting him because he had shown kindness to her daughter. The morning after Administrator Lee was found dead, the entire colony was in chaos. The workers were scared and angry. Some wanted to leave immediately, while others demanded better protection. The corporate security forces were calling for military ships to come help them, but everyone knew it would take days for help to arrive. Junho went to work in the communications center, but he could not focus on his job. He kept thinking about the message written on the wall. "For the children you turned away." It was clear that someone was getting revenge for all the alien families that had been denied help. But he needed to know more about what had really happened. Using his access to the colony computer systems, Junho began to search through old records. He found files about security procedures and colony policies. He discovered that the no aliens rule had been in place for over a year and that hundreds of refugee families had been turned away during that time. Most of the records were just numbers and dates, but some files had video recordings from the security cameras. Junho found footage of families being turned away at the colony gates. He watched as desperate people begged for help, only to be told that humans only were allowed Many of the families had children who looked sick or hungry. As he searched through more files, Junho found something that made his blood run cold. It was a video recording from 3 weeks ago showing a Valen woman and a small child approaching the colony gates. The woman was tall and graceful with long silver hair. She carried the child in her arms, and the child looked very weak. The woman spoke to the security guards, explaining that her daughter was sick and needed medical help, she said. They had been traveling for weeks trying to find a safe place to stay. The guards told her that no aliens were allowed and that she would have to leave immediately. Then Administrator Lee appeared in the video. He walked up to the woman and spoke to her in a cold voice. Even though the sound was not clear, Junho could see Lee pointing away from the colony and shaking his head. The woman tried to plead with him, but Lee just walked away. The woman in the video looked directly at the security camera for a moment. Her face was full of sadness and anger, but there was something else in her eyes, something that made Junho feel scared. It was like she was making a promise to herself about what she would do. The woman picked up her child and walked away from the colony gates, but as she walked, Junho noticed something strange about the way she moved. She did not walk like a desperate refugee. She walked like someone who was very dangerous, someone who was used to being in control. This had to be Kira's mother, the woman who was now moving through the colony like a ghost, killing the people who had turned her away. The woman who had left him the note saying he was protected that evening. Junho made a decision that would change his life forever. He took a bowl of soup from the mess hall and walked to the place where he had first met Kira. He left the soup on the ground along with a note that said, "For Kira and her mother, I want to talk." He did not have to wait long. As the colony artificial night began, he heard soft footsteps approaching his quarters. He opened his door and saw a figure standing in the shadow. "Step into the light, please," Junho said. "I know you are there." The figure moved forward and Junho saw her clearly for the first time. She was the woman from the security video, but she looked very different now. Instead of desperate and pleading, she looked calm and dangerous. She wore dark clothes that seemed to blend with the shadows. Her silver hair was braided with small metal pieces that caught the light. "You are Captain Kim," she said in perfect human language with a musical accent. "The one who fed my daughter when she was hungry." "Yes," Junho said. "I am the one who gave Kira soup. I want to help you." Behind the woman, Junho could see a small figure. It was Kira, looking much healthier than when he had first met her. She was clean and her clothes were not torn anymore. She smiled at him and waved. "I have come to thank you," the woman said. "My name is Zara. This is my daughter, Kira. You saved her life with your kindness." Junho invited them into his quarters. He made tea while Zara sat at his small table. Kira sat on the floor playing with a new wooden carving she had made. "I know what you have been doing," Junho said carefully. "The security officers, the administrator, you are the one who killed them." Zara looked at him with eyes that seemed much older than her face. "Not just us," she said. Her voice was full of sadness. "Hundreds of families, thousands of children. They have been turning away refugees for months, sending them back to die in the wilderness. My daughter and I barely survived 3 weeks in the rocks before she managed to find food." "But why kill them?" Junho asked. "Why not report them to the authorities?" Zara laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "The authorities, Captain Kim, the corporate security forces, answer to no one but their profit margins. There is no justice for my people in your legal system. There is only the justice we make for ourselves." She leaned forward and looked directly at him. "But you showed kindness to a starving child. You proved that not all humans are cruel. That is why you are protected. That is why I am here talking to you instead of hiding in the shadows." "What do you want from me?" Junho asked. "I want to offer you a choice," Zara said. "You can continue your life as before, pretending you never saw the cruelty of this place. In exchange, you will be safe from what is coming, or you can help me complete my mission to make sure justice is served." "What kind of mission?" Junho asked. "I need to identify every person who was responsible for turning away refugee families," Zara said. "I need to know who gave the orders, who enforced the rules, and who could have stopped the cruelty but chose not to. You have access to the colony records. You can help me find the truth." Junho felt scared but also angry as he thought about all the families he had seen in the video recordings, all the children who had been turned away to die in the wilderness. "I do not want to be part of killing people," he said. "You Will not kill anyone, Zara replied. I only ask you to help me find the truth about who is responsible. The rest I will handle myself as. Dawn approached Junho, found himself agreeing to help. He would use his access to the colony computers to identify the people who had created and enforced the cruel policies. And Zara would decide what to do with that information. It was a partnership. That would change everything. The next few days were the strangest of Junho's life. During the day he worked in the communications center, pretending everything was normal. At night he searched through the colony computer files looking for information about the refugee policies. He found records of meetings where the cruel rules were discussed. He found emails between administrators talking about how to keep aliens away. He found reports showing how many families had been turned away and what happened to them afterward. Most of the information made him sick to his stomach. The colony leaders knew that turning away refugees meant sending them to die, but they did not care. They only cared about following company orders and keeping their jobs. Some of the security officers had questioned the policies, but they were told to follow orders or find new jobs. Junho discovered that the cruelty was not just random. It was planned and organized. The company had decided that allowing aliens to stay would cost too much money. So they created rules that made it impossible for refugees to get help. Even families with sick children were turned away without any medical care. 3 nights after his first meeting with Zara, she appeared at his door again. This time she brought more than just Kira. She brought information about herself and her people that would help Junho understand what was really happening. You have questions about me, Zara said as she sat at his table drinking tea. I can see it in your eyes. You want to know how I can move through this colony without being seen. You want to know how I can kill trained security officers without leaving traces. Yes. Junho said, I have never seen anyone move like you do. It is like you can become invisible. Zara smiled. And for the first time since he had met her, she looked almost human. My people, the Valen, have many different groups, she said. Most of us are peaceful farmers and artists, but some of us are trained for special purposes. I am what you would call a ghost walker. What is a ghost walker? Junho asked. We are guardians of justice, Zara explained. When someone commits crimes against our people and there is no other way to stop them, we are sent to balance the scales. We can move through shadows like they are doorways. We can kill without making sounds. We can disappear when others would be caught. Junho felt a chill run down his spine. How many ghost walkers are there? Very few, Zara said, and her voice became sad. The training is long and dangerous. Many do not survive it. Those who do become something that is not quite normal anymore. We sacrifice our chance at normal lives to protect others. Why did you become a ghost walker? Junho asked. I had no choice, Zara said. When I was young, pirates attacked my home planet. They killed my parents and many other people. The authorities did nothing because my planet was too far away and too poor to matter. I decided that if no one else would seek justice, then I would learn to do it myself. She looked at Kira, who was playing quietly on the floor. My daughter does not know the full truth about what I am, she said. She knows I'm good at hiding and that I protect people, but she does not know about the killing. I hope she never has to learn. Over the next several hours, Zara told Junho about the long journey she and Kira had taken to reach the mining colony. They had traveled for months, fleeing from the war zones in the outer rim planets. They had lived on refugee ships and in temporary camps, always hoping to find a place where they could be safe. When we finally reached this colony, I thought our journey was over, Zara said. I thought humans would show mercy to a mother and her sick child, but your security officers were colder than the space between stars. They did not even look at Kira when she was coughing and weak. They just said no aliens allowed and told us to leave. What did you do then? Junho asked. Tai took Kira into the rocks and tried to keep her alive, Zara said. I hunted for small animals and found water in hidden springs, but she was getting weaker every day. I knew she would die if I could not find real food and medicine. Then she found her way into the colony and met you, Zara continued. Her voice became warm. You gave her soup and bread. You treated her like a person, not like an alien pest. You saved her life, and you did not even know it. Junho felt tears in his eyes as he realized how close Kira had come to dying. I just saw a hungry child, he said. I could not let her starve. That is what makes you different from the others, Zara said. That is why you are here talking to me instead of lying dead in your quarters. As the artificial dawn approached, Zara began to prepare to leave, but first she wanted to showed Junho something. She took out a small device that looked like a music player. This contains recordings of every conversation the colony leaders had about the refugee policies, she said. I've been listening to them for weeks. They talk about alien families like they are animals. They laugh about sending children back to die in the wilderness. They place bets on how long refugees will survive in the rocks. Junho listened to some of the recordings and felt sick. The colony leaders were even worse than he had imagined. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they enjoyed the power they had over desperate people there. Is something else you should know, Zara said. I am not the only one seeking justice. Other ghost walkers are coming. Some of the families that were turned away had connections to powerful people. They have sent help. How many are coming? Junho asked. Enough to make sure that everyone responsible faces justice, Zara said, but you will be protected. I have made sure of that. Your kindness to my daughter has marked you as someone who deserves to live. As Zara and Kira prepared to leave, Junho made a final decision. He would help them as much as he could. He would use his access to the colony systems to identify every person who had participated in the cruel policies, and he would make sure that the truth about what had happened was recorded so that other colonies would know what happened when they chose cruelty over compassion. Before they left, Kira ran up to Junho and gave him another wooden carving. This one showed a man, a woman, and a child standing together like a family. You are our friend now, she said in her sweet voice. Mama says friends protect each other. As they disappeared into the shadows, Junho knew that his quiet life in the mining colony was over. The reckoning was coming, and he would be part of it. The corporate reinforcement ship arrived at the mining colony 3 days later. It was a big military vessel with 50 armed soldiers and advanced weapons. The ship landed outside the colony gates and immediately set up a defensive perimeter around the entire facility. The soldiers were trained professionals who had dealt with alien threats before. Captain Yujin Song was the military commander in charge of the reinforcements. She was a tough woman with short black hair and cold eyes. She had read all the reports about the mysterious killings, and she was determined to find whoever was responsible. Captain Song called a meeting with all the remaining colony leaders. She set up her command center in the main administration building and began questioning everyone about what they had seen and heard. We are dealing with a highly skilled assassin, Song announced to the frightened colonists. Someone who can move without being detected and kill without leaving evidence. This is not random violence. This is planned and organized. Nimsu Park, the security chief, was relieved to have military help, but he was also scared because he knew he might be next on the killer's list. We have increased patrols and locked down all the buildings, he reported, but somehow the killer keeps getting through our defenses. Song studied the files on her computer screen showing the locations where bodies had been found. All the victims were security officers or administrators who had direct contact with refugees, she said. This suggests the killer has specific targets and a clear motive while the military was setting up their investigation. Junho continued his secret work with Zara. He had created a complete list of everyone who had been involved in creating or enforcing the cruel refugee policies. The list included not just the dead officers but also several people who were still alive. Zara met with him again that night, appearing in his quarters like a shadow. She reviewed the information he had gathered and nodded with satisfaction. You have done excellent work, she said. These records will help ensure that justice is complete, but there is something else I must tell you. The military reinforcements will not be able to stop what is coming. What do you mean? Junho asked. More ghost walkers arrived on the refugee ships that have been gathering in the asteroid belt, Zara explained. They have been watching this colony for months, waiting for the right time to act. The military soldiers are trained to fight conventional enemies, but they have never faced opponents like us. How many ghostwalkers are there? Junho asked, feeling a chill of fear. Enough, she replied. 7 of us, including myself. We represent the families of over 200 refugees who were turned away from this colony to die. Each of us has sworn to see justice done. That night, the killings resumed despite the military presence. 2 more security officers were found dead in their quarters. Their necks were broken in the same precise way as the others. The military patrols found no signs of how the killer had gotten past their defenses. Captain Song was furious and confused. She had stationed guards at every entrance and exit. She had installed motion sensors and heat detectors throughout the colony. But somehow the killer was still getting through. The next morning brought even worse news for the military forces. One of their own soldiers was found dead. The young man had been on patrol duty and his body was discovered in a storage room with his neck broken like the others. This changes everything, Song announced to her officers. We are not just dealing with someone targeting colony personnel. This killer is also willing to attack military forces. We must assume we are dealing with a trained enemy combatant, but even with increased security measures, the deaths continued. Each night more people died, and each morning brought new fear to the colony. The military soldiers began to look nervous and jumpy. Some of them started talking about requesting evacuation. Meanwhile, Junho was struggling with his own conscience. He had helped identify the targets, but he had not expected the violence to escalate so quickly. He began to wonder if he had made the right choice in helping Zara. During their next meeting, he expressed his concerns to Harry. Did not think it would be this bad, he said. So many people are dying. Is there no other way to get justice? Zara looked at him with sad eyes. Captain Kim, you have seen the records. You know what these people did. They condemned hundreds of families to death. They separated children from their parents. They sent sick people back to die in the wilderness. They did all this while laughing and making jokes about alien suffering. I know they did terrible things, Junho said, but does that mean they all deserve to die? What would you have us do? Zara asked. Go to the authorities and file complaints, write letters to the company headquarters, hoping they will investigate themselves. The system that allowed this cruelty to happen is the same system that would protect the people. Responsible Agent Ho had no answer to that. He knew she was right, that the normal legal system would not help alien refugees get justice against powerful human corporations. There is something else you must understand, Zara continued. This is not just about punishment. This is about preventing future cruelty. When other colonies hear what happened here, they will think twice before turning away refugee families. They will remember that there are consequences for showing no mercy to the desperate. As if to prove her point, they received news that 3 other mining colonies in the sector had suddenly changed their policies to allow refugee families to stay for humanitarian reasons. The word was spreading that cruel treatment of aliens could lead to deadly consequences. That night, Junho made his final choice. He would continue to help Zara and her fellow Ghostwalkers complete their mission. He would make sure that every person responsible for the cruel policies faced justice. And he would help document everything so that the truth would be known. But he also made one more request. I want to help evacuate the innocent people, he said. The workers and technicians who had no power to change the policies. They do not deserve to die for someone else as cruelty. Zara considered this for a moment, then nodded. We have no interest in harming innocent people, she said. Only those who were directly responsible for the suffering will face justice. As dawn approached, Junho realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a communications officer in a mining colony. He was now part of something much bigger, a movement to ensure that kindness and mercy were not just empty words, but principles worth fighting for. Choice had been made, and there was no going back. The final night of the reckoning began quietly. The military soldiers were on high alert, and the remaining colony leaders were locked in the most secure building they could find. Captain Song had positioned her best troops around the administration complex, hoping to finally catch the mysterious killer, but the Ghost Walkers were not planning to attack the heavily defended areas. Instead, they moved through the colony like whispers in the darkness, 7 deadly shadows working together to complete their mission of justice. Each one had been assigned specific targets based on the information Junho had provided by dawn. It was over. Every security officer who had participated in turning away refugee families was dead. Every administrator who had created or enforced the cruel policies was found in their quarters with their necks broken. Even some of the military officers who had been sent to protect the colony were dead because they had tried to continue the same harsh treatment of aliens. But the killings had not been random or vengeful. The Ghostwalkers had been very careful about who they targeted. The ordinary workers, the technicians, the cooks, and maintenance staff were all left alive. Only those who had direct responsibility for the suffering of refugee families were killed. Captain Song found herself in an impossible situation when she tried to investigate the deaths. Her forensic experts could find no evidence of how the killers had gotten past their defenses, no fingerprints, No DNA, no security footage showing anyone entering or leaving the buildings where bodies were found. The ghost walkers had been so skilled that they left no trace of their presence except for the bodies of their targets. It was as if death itself had simply visited the colony and taken only those who deserved to die among. The dead was Deputy Administrator Jun Seo Kim, who had been in charge of refugee processing. He was found at his desk with a note pinned to his chest. The note listed the names of 43 children who had died after being turned away from the colony. It was signed Justice for the Innocent also. Dead was Security Captain Hyun-woo Lee, who had trained his officers to be especially harsh with alien refugees. He was found in his quarters with documents scattered around him showing all the families he had personally turned away. The documents were covered in red ink with the word murderer written across each page. The most shocking discovery was in the colony. Medical Center Dr. Sang-min Park, the chief medical officer, was found dead in his office. He had been the person who refused to treat sick alien children when their families begged for help. A sign was left on his desk that read, "You took the oath to heal, but chose to kill." When the military investigators tried to question the surviving colonists, they found that most of them were actually relieved that the cruel leaders were dead. Many of the workers admitted they had been disgusted by the refugee policies but had been too scared to speak up. "I am glad they are gone," said Jin Kim, a maintenance worker who had been at the colony for 3 years. "Those people were monsters. They enjoyed turning away families with sick children. They used to joke about how long refugees would survive, and the rock-similar sentiments were expressed by other survivors. The ghost walkers had been so precise in their targeting that they had actually removed the people that most colonists feared and hated. The ordinary workers felt safer now that the cruel leaders were gone. Captain Song realized that she was facing something unprecedented in military history. The killers had not just committed murder, they had performed what many people would consider justice. They had removed evil people who had caused immense suffering, and they had done it without harming any innocent bystanders. When she filed her report with military headquarters, Song had to admit that her investigation had found no evidence of how the killings were carried out, no witnesses, no physical evidence, no way to identify or track the killers. It was as if they had never existed. The corporate executives who owned the mining colony were furious when they heard about the deaths. They wanted revenge against whoever had killed their people. But they also realized that the story of what had happened was spreading throughout the galaxy. Other colonies were hearing about the ghost walkers and the price of cruelty within. Days of the killings news reports were appearing on every human world, telling the story of the mining colony that had turned away refugee families only to face deadly consequences. The reports included interviews with survivors who talked about the cruel policies and the suffering they had caused. Public opinion began to shift as people learned about what had really happened. Many humans were horrified to discover that their own species had been so cruel to desperate alien families. Protests began on several worlds demanding changes to refugee policies. The corporate executives found themselves facing a public relations disaster. They quickly announced new policies that would provide aid to alien refugees. They claimed they had always intended to be more humanitarian but had been waiting for the right time to implement changes, but the changes came too late for the people who had died. The ghost walkers had already delivered their message that cruelty toward the helpless would not be tolerated. Some forms of justice could not be stopped by corporate policies or military force. 3 months after the killings, the mining colony was permanently shut down. The corporate executives claimed it was for economic reasons, but everyone knew the real reason. The colony had become a symbol of what happened when humans chose cruelty over compassion. Junho was transferred to a new position at a research station that specialized in helping refugee families. He never saw Zara or Kira again after that final night, but he often thought about them. He hoped they had found a safe place to live and that Kira was growing up happy and healthy. Sometimes late at night, Junho would find small wooden carvings outside his quarters. They were always simple figures of families helping each other or people sharing food. He never saw who left them, but he knew they were reminders that kindness was remembered and that good actions had consequences just as surely as cruel ones. The story of the mining colony spread throughout the galaxy, becoming a legend that parents told their children. It was a story about how one bowl of soup given to a hungry child had started a chain of events that changed the way humans treated alien refugees. It was a story about how the smallest act of kindness could have the biggest consequences, and it was a story about how justice sometimes came in forms that no law or government could control. Years later, when Junho had become an old man, he would tell young people about the importance of showing mercy to those who needed help. He would explain that every person they met might be someone's beloved child, and that treating others with kindness was not just morally right, but also practically wise, because you never know, he would say with a smile, who might be watching, and you never know what consequences your actions might have. Whether you choose kindness or cruelty, the universe has a way of making sure you get what you deserve. The mining colony was gone, but its lesson lived on in the hearts of everyone who heard the story, a reminder that in a vast and dangerous galaxy, the choice between compassion and cruelty was the most important decision any person could make.